مرحبا بكم في حوارات السياق. كشف وزير الخارجية الأمريكي أن بلاده تشعر بقلق عميق بشأن تقارير تحدثت عن تصاعد العنف في الصراع في شمال إثيوبيا. وكانت الولايات المتحدة ودول غربية أخرى حضت الحكومة الإثيوبية وجبهة تيغراي على بدء محادثات السلام بقيادة الاتحاد الإفريقي، ودعت كذلك إريتريا المجاورة إلى سحب قواتها من ساحات المعارك. عموما للمزيد من المتابعة حول هذا الملف ينضم إلينا يبيو أسفاو، المؤسس المشارك لمجلس التنمية الإثيوبي الأمريكي. أستاذ يبيو، مرحبا بك معنا.
Thank you so much for having me, Anas. I'm glad to be here.
لماذا قبلت الحكومة الفيدرالية وكذلك جبهة تيغراي بالتفاوض الآن؟
This is actually not the first peace talk between the two. Since the Tigray rebels started the armed insurrection 2 years ago, there has been 3 ceasefires and as many attempts for negotiation. We know that the Ethiopian government has demonstrated that it wants peace going back to 2018 when it assumed power from the TPLF. And ever since then, since the TPLF was removed from power, there has been multiple attempts for a peaceful transition. There were many efforts made to mediate between the TPLF old guard and the new Ethiopian government. But rather than work with the new government, the TPLF retreated to their native region of Tigray, from where they launched the current armed insurrection in 2020. And even since then, there has been 3 chances for ceasefire and peace talk. However, all the past attempts failed because of preconditions and demands the TPLF rebels were making that the Ethiopian government did not find acceptable. So what's different now is that the TPLF is finally agreeing for the negotiations.
لأن هناك من قال أن للأمر علاقة بتقدم الجيش الإثيوبي على الأرض.
Yeah, absolutely. The current moment, the Ethiopian government has advanced into Tigray. This is the first time since June of 2021 the Ethiopian security forces have decided to cross the regional boundary and enter Tigray. Previous to this current wave, the war was actually occurring outside of Tigray in the 2 neighboring regions called Amhara and Afar, the 2 areas that were invaded and occupied by the TPLF rebels. So the current fighting is occurring inside Tigray, and the TPLF has lost all territory they've occupied before, and they're now encircled in the regional capital of Mekelle. And reports are out today that even the international airport at Mekelle is now at the hands of the Ethiopian government. So really, the TPLF's fighting capabilities have been significantly degraded, and almost their entire force has retreated or disbanded. So they don't have much leverage left. And so the majority of Ethiopians believe that the TPLF is accepting this peace talks now because they have to.
وكأنك تخبرني أن جبهة تيغراي في موقف ضعيف ميدانيا وبالتالي تفاوضيا.
Very weak positions. They've lost 98% of the territory they once held. Their troops are, by large number retreating or submitting to the Ethiopian government. So they don't really have a whole lot of leverage right now to really. They've lost almost everything at this point. So they're in a very weak position.
بالمقابل، ما الذي يدفع الحكومة الفيدرالية للتفاوض بعد أن باتت في مركز قوة ميدانيا؟
I think there's been a lot of pressure from the West, and it's been a coordinated effort to put pressure on the Ethiopian government by international forces powers who are sympathetic to the TPLF armed insurgents. The TPLF rebels chose war as a means to settle their difference, and for the past 2 years, they've been given ample space to pursue war by the international community, including the Biden administration and the United States Congress, which has imposed sanctions on the elected government of Ethiopia, but not applied a single punitive measure to the TPLF rebel forces. And there's been more threats against Ethiopia. There's been over 17 meetings at the United Nations Security Council. So there's a lot of coordinated pressure to push the Ethiopian government, unfortunately. And even though at the moment the government is on the cusp of realizing a military solution to disarm the rebels, there's still pressure from the West to really revive the TPLF, or to push the government back. But I think at this point, this negotiation could end up a negotiation for the TPLF to surrender or to disarm, because I don't really see any other option left for them.
بمناسبة حديثك عن الولايات المتحدة، وفد تيغراي وصل لمقر انعقاد المفاوضات على متن طائرة عسكرية أمريكية برفقة المبعوث الأمريكي إلى القرن الإفريقي مايك هامر. هل تدعم الولايات المتحدة طرفاً أكثر من الآخر في هذه الأزمة؟
For Ethiopians, this is something that's dear and close to their heart. The majority of Ethiopians really do believe that the Biden administration favors the TPLF in this war. And there's been many indications of that in the Horn. I mean, just a month ago, the Horn of Africa envoy, Mike Hammer, was in Tigray taking selfies with the TPLF rebel leaders. There's been a long-standing and legitimate concern that the Biden administration is too friendly with the TPLF, and this is a great deal of concern for the people of Ethiopia and the Horn of Africa. And the news that this TPLF warlords are being transported in a U.S. military plane is something that will raise, or has raised, this concern that the United States, with the Biden administration, is not a neutral party to this conflict, which has really made it difficult for the U.S. to win the hearts and minds of the Ethiopian people. So I think that's what that's reflecting. But in any way, I don't think that even the U.S. has any leverage in this negotiation or in this peace talk, as the Ethiopian government has the upper hand. But unfortunately, the optics of what's happening does not look good in the eyes of the Ethiopian people.
المفاوضات سيدعمها فريق وساطة من الاتحاد الإفريقي. باعتقادك هل سيقبل الطرفان بهذه الوساطة؟
Yeah, I think the Ethiopian government, the Ethiopian people have always accepted the African Union. It's been more fair and balanced than the Western institutions. The Ethiopians have repeatedly said that this is an African solution. The African problem need African solutions. African problems, African solutions. We can solve our own problem. Don't interfere. So that's what's happening now. The Western institutions now are just observers in this peace talk. But if the Western institutions would stop their intervention and back off of this peace talk and let the African Union handle it, the African Union would have a better chance of getting a deal done. So really, the only option is the African Union, and all the other parties at this point are a liability for this peace process.
جبهة تيغراي أعلنت أنها ستسعى إلى الوقف الفوري لما سمته الأعمال العدائية ووصول المساعدات الإنسانية وكذلك انسحاب القوات الإريترية. كيف ستتجاوب الحكومة الفيدرالية مع هذه المطالب؟ وهل جبهة تيغراي في موقف يسمح لها بفرض مطالب؟
The TPLF rebels have no such leverage to make demands or to dictate the terms of negotiation. The bulk of the TPLF militia have surrendered, or they're voluntarily retreating, or they're encircled in the capital city of Mekelle. So the war has been won. The only question is, how long will it take the TPLF leaders to surrender or to be disarmed? So these demands they're making are not realistic, and they don't even make sense. For example, the demand of, humanitarian aid. The humanitarian aid blockade has been the biggest misrepresentation in this war. The entity that has been blocking aid has been the TPLF itself. They've been hijacking aid trucks. Over 1,000 United Nations aid trucks were hijacked by these rebels and used for war. They've been raiding warehouses of the World Food Program. They've been stealing food and using it to feed their rebel armies. So this is very well documented. There has also been statements and press releases from UN officials on the ground in Ethiopia complaining about the TPLF raiding their warehouse and stealing food. So now, with the basically 98% of the region liberated and under the control of the Ethiopian government, we're already seeing aid flowing to the people freely. In all liberated areas of Tigray, Amhara, and Afar, emphasize the three regions because even though the world's attention is only focused on Tigray, the humanitarian catastrophe is affecting all three regions where the TPLF invaded. Really, at this point, the only option the TPLF appears to have is negotiating the terms of their surrender and disarming, so there can be a transition to peace for Ethiopia. None of the demands they're making are realistic, and the Ethiopian government really would not have any reason to give this concessions at a time where the TPLF has essentially been completely defeated.
سؤالي الأخير عن التوقعات، مع أني أكره الأسئلة أو لا أحبذ أسئلة التوقعات. هل ستنجح هذه الجولة من المفاوضات وتضع حداً لأكثر من عامين من النزاع؟
I'm absolutely optimistic. The negotiations backed by the African Union, it has very respectable African elders and leaders in this negotiation. The Ethiopian people are ready. Most importantly, the people of Tigray are ready for peace, and they're ready to move past the era of the TPLF. The TPLF has been a problem in Ethiopia for 40 years. And I think that the time has come where to turn the page. So I'm very optimistic. The right people from Africa are involved. And Ethiopia has had some great partners like the UAE, Turkey and China that have been very helpful. And many African countries like Eritrea that are helping the Ethiopian people and standing in solidarity with this big nation of 120 million people. So I'm extremely hopeful, and I really do believe, and as most Ethiopians are feeling, that the end of the war is approaching.
يبيو أسفاو، شكرا جزيلا لك للمشاركة معنا في حوارات السياق.
Thank you. شكرا. Thank you for having me. Have a nice day.
مشاهدينا، شكرا على طيب المتابعة. إلى الملتقى.